Chapter 3 at Cape Girardeau. The story of the four companies, A, D, F, and G, under Major Eberhart, may best be told in the language of Sergeant J. M. Boyd, of F, from whose diary and narrative the facts are gleaned. Members of the regiment will not complain of space devoted to comparatively unimportant details and personal mention. These may not properly be styled history, but the life of the soldier, in camp and field, is always of interest to his comrades and to the family of those who are participants in the same campaigns. Sergeant Boyd says, Sunday, the 23rd, the four companies got marching orders, went back again Tuesday, the 25th, got orders again, went to the levee, but only Company A could be crowded on the boat. The other three companies tramped about and waited until night, and then went on board another boat. Lay all night among the coal piles on the boiler deck, and next morning were ordered back to Camp Benton. On the morning of the 27th, marching orders came again. Got into line, marched part way to levee, then halted, marched part way back, then marched and counter-marched until finally we reached the levee after dark and were stored away on the boiler deck. The steam was up, the boat shot out of the river, and we were soon enjoying a good sleep among the coal piles, boxes, and other goods and chattels of Uncle Sam, notwithstanding the stamping and kicking of the mules and horses, which were closely jammed into intervening spaces. 4:00 p.m. of the 28th found the four companies at Cape Girardeau marching to Camp Scott in a snowstorm, scraped away the snow, pitched Fremont tents, and soon turned in for the night. Sleep had not closed our eyes ere the cry rang out through the camp. Up, up, boys! Here they come! Here they are! Soon the boys were out and looking to the west. The sky was ablaze with the fire of musketry. Every man seized his musket, but not a man had a cartridge. Lieutenant Campbell seized an old axe, broke open a cartridge box, and distributed the cartridges. Guns were soon loaded and all in line for a light, but no enemy appeared. All was again quiet on the picket line, and we lay down in our tents. But just as sleep was closing our eyes, the cry came again, Up, boys! Here they are! No mistake this time! Out sprang every man, gun in hand, into line. Surely our first fight was upon us, thought we as we looked at the blaze of musketry along the picket line. After standing and shivering in line and around the campfires for several hours, all again became quiet. And someone slanderously reported that it was only a little whiskey mixed with the powder on the picket line that caused the trouble. Occasionally, at least, too much whiskey got mixed with the gunpowder during the war. The stay at the Cape during garrison duty in the winters of 1862 and 3 was one of those irksome, monotonous times disliked by the soldier. About every third morning, a man could expect to get ready for guard mounting, be marched down to be reviewed and inspected by the post adjutant, and after parley, and standing in line, march out as guard to Port C, A, B, or to picket the Benton, Bloomfield, or Jackson Road. The night might be dark, a misty rain and a dense fog on the Mississippi River, which will make the blackness of darkness, if anything in this world can, or it may be in a drenching storm of rain, snow, and sleet, or the night may be piercing cold, but the sentinel must stand his post, or, if on a fort, must quickly walk his beat on the breastwork, keeping his ears well open to give the alarm for the first approach of a wily foe. But the first alarm the cautious sentinel may receive may be the crack of a gun of a stealthy fire that brings him to death. This, together with occasional battalion drills, inspections, and dress parades, made up the work for the winter of 1862 and 63. Nothing broke the monotony except an occasional false alarm and some raids into the country. One was under the command of Captain Roselle, in which the noted Archie Price, a relative of old Pap Price, was captured. One was a trip down the river on a boat under Lieutenant Campbell, in which the boys had some romantic experiences with the treachery of the boat's crew. The boat was bound for Memphis. 5 paymasters were on board, armed with the necessary greenbacks to pay the troops below. Lieutenant Campbell was ordered, with a squad from our regiment to report to the boat to protect and guard the 5 PMs and their little iron safes containing millions of the precious paper. But he soon discovered that the captain of the boat had an anxious ear for some other goods marked private, some dry goods, Kinney Connect tobacco, etc. The boat reached island number 10 in safety, delivered the mail to our troops there with dispatch, and then hastily drew in her cables and was swinging out into the channel when the commander of the post ordered her to heave to and land. To this the captain objected, but just then a solid shot from one of the heavy guns of one of the forts, sweeping over her bow, said, "You must," and she did. A search disclosed the facts that the boxes marked tobacco contained quinine and other medicines, and the others contained clothing and arms, and that the boat's crew was in a conspiracy to run the boat into a point on the Arkansas shore, then in the possession of a guerrilla band, and deliver all over to the enemy. A new captain and crew were placed in charge of the boat, and she was again sent on the way, while the old captain and crew were placed in durance vile. Treachery on the part of the steamboat crews about this time was not infrequent. A few days after, the steamer White Cloud was made to haul to, and search discovered a large amount of rebel mail and over $18,000 in gold, ready to be turned over to the enemy at the first convenient point. During the holidays and the early part of January, scouts reported that the enemy was preparing to take the Cape. Bill Jeffries, a noted Methodist preacher in southeast Missouri before the war, then a noted guerrilla leader, and said to be familiar with every cow path in that part of the state, was patrolling the country, marshaling forces. And that swamp fox, Jeff Thompson, it was said he had a force of 7,000 men collecting in and around Bloomfield and Wool Swamp. Wool Swamp is a vast slough of sunken lands extending from the river about New Madrid back some 30 miles. In places, it is at times navigable for large class steamboats. The banks and places through the swamps are covered with heavy timber. See General Pope's report of his campaign against New Madrid for the purpose of making a dash on the Cape. It was then guarded by our detachment, some home militia, and a company of artillery, then in a state of mutiny, which made some of our assistance an uncertain quantity at best, and caused a doubling up of our guard and picket duty, and from the fact that we had then had no cavalry with us for a general scout or picket work, the enemy could come within 2 miles of town without being perceived. It has required us to be always on the alert and ever ready to resist an attempted surprise. At times there were not enough men for camp guard. So much picket work and the want of rest and sleep began to tell on the health of the men.